What about tailwinds?
The tailwinds around data, and you see a lot of those conversations going on, the tailwinds linked to cloud consumption.
What are your thoughts in it? Like the clients, whatever they're expecting, they get the desired outcome.
If one wants to productionize AI, instead of just keeping AI as a line item in the P&L, which is an innovation lab, you need to first get your data structures right.
We have Middle East war, yet travel industry is not going down.
The airline industry is fundamentally reinventing itself. The entire industry is trying to get to consumers directly.
A lot of data which is not having that, maintaining that quality. How those firms can create a balance in this era?
I think it has to be somewhat linear. You can't be going all in on AI, and there was a school of thought that said even if you have unstructured data, you're an enterprise, start creating AI layers and start extracting information.
So what conviction did you have and what did you see which others didn't in that industry?
I think the industry was doing well, and what I did inherit, as you rightly said, Sonia, in 2017 was a $400 million tech services platform.
India's IT industry is worth $285 billion and employs nearly 6 million people, and AI is shaking its foundations. My guest today is one of the few leaders who saw it coming and bet everything on it. He took a mid-cap firm, built it into a $2.5 billion powerhouse, and then doubled down on AI, while others were still debating whether to. This is TOI AIQ Talks, and this is the view from the top. I am Sonia Singh, and you are watching TOI AIQ Talks, a series that builds up to the TOI AI Quotient Awards this September. India's premier platform for recognizing enterprises and leaders using AI into real results. It is rare to sit with someone who has not just predicted the future of an industry, but actually built it. Our guest today is Sudhir Singh, the Chief Executive Officer of Coforge, and serves on the company's board of directors. He joined Coforge in May 2017. Under his watch, it has grown to become a $2.5 billion plus firm and the 7th largest Indian IT services firm. The market cap of Coforge has risen more than 17 times over the last 9 years since he joined. Its valuation today is approximately $6.5 billion. Sudhir, being a graduate of IIT and IIM, he is a recipient of the prestigious Distinguished IIT Alumnus Award also. Welcome, Sudhir, to the show.
It's great to be here, Sonia. Thank you for having me.
And joining us once again is founder and CEO of ADROSONIC, Mayank, our AI quotient knowledge partner who has been helping in exploring how AI is reshaping industries from entertainment to insurance to technology. Mayank, welcome.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for having me here, and very nice to have Sudhir here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sudhir, let's start with you. And 2017, you inherited a mid-cap firm. And at time, I think the outsourcing wave was catching up or probably missed or whatever. So what conviction did you have and what did you see which others didn't in that industry?
I think the industry was doing well, and what I did inherit, as you rightly said, Sonia, in 2017 was a $400 million tech services platform. And when I looked at the platform, I recognized that it was a platform that had been nurtured with absolute integrity by the founders. It was a platform where the foundational elements, employee retention, employee loyalty, employee affiliation was very high. It was also a platform where, while there were a limited number of clients, the client tenures were long. What that fundamentally said was that there was clear affiliation with the client cohort as well. Along with that, what I also saw was a firm that at $400 million was trying to exactly mirror the story, the narrative, and the approach of some of the larger firms like Accenture that were literally more than 100 times our size then, and a firm where the go-to-market movement could be improved. So what I saw was an opportunity to pivot very sharply around a few hyper-specialized industries. What I saw was the opportunity to tweak the go-to-market machine. And what I saw, and this has been borne out, you talked about it over time, was the opportunity to create a growth-driven, differentiation-driven, capability-driven narrative that would be second to none in the years to come.
And in 2023, there was this moment and all the employees got an iPad. Any thinking behind that? And what was the moment, if you can just share it with us?
In our industry, there are two inflection points for a firm that's growing. The first inflection point is, and we all recognize this, is when you hit $1 billion. The second inflection point is when you hit $5 billion. The billion for us was, obviously, it was a professional achievement. But more than a professional achievement, it was I think emotionally, it was something that resonated with all what was then 21,000 of us as team members. The decision from a commercial lens was a very poor decision because giving iPads to everyone meant that in that quarter, 40% of the profits got wiped out. And please remember, this was done at a time when the majority stake in the firm at that point in time was held by a private equity. So it went counter to just about any kind of commercial judgment that should have been exercised. In retrospect, what it did, besides the fact that obviously all the team members were very excited, was it just signaled to the market that here was a firm that was willing at its scale at that point in time to put up to 40% of its profit up for employees. And it was a mirror to the confidence that we had, not just in us as a firm, but in the employees who actually got us to where we were. And that resonated. So instead of the market reacting and saying 40% of the profits got wiped out, the narrative switched over to look at this firm at a time when the industry is troubled, it's coming out of COVID, it has the confidence, the implicit confidence to be able to go and bid it all on the employees.
So that 21,000 has now become 40,000?
45,000 as we speak.
Okay, and that 1 billion would be by
Running it-
2030. What's the plan?
What we told the market last week in the investor meeting is we'll hit $5 billion by 2030. We are already running, we were $1 billion in 2023. As you rightly said, we're already running at a run rate of $2.5 billion. So we've already grown 2.5 times of what we were 3 years back. Last week, we told the market that 2030 should see us at $5 billion plus. And there have been a few follow-up questions. And we said, hey, listen, we hope it is a conservative guidance. And we think it is a conservative guidance.
And you used the word run rate.
That's right.
So that means something to do with cricket, a lot of analogies. And then I heard your father was in army.
That's right.
So, that experience, leading from the front and, importance of team, did that help?
It helps. And this question does come up a lot. I think the best testament to the affiliation that anyone like me who's not even served in the Indian Army but has grown up in army cantonments, to the ethos of the Indian Army, is the affiliation that all of us, despite not being part of the Indian Army, carry with that institution. So for starters, that's just a testament to that institution and the fondness and the regard and the loyalty that all of us carry. There are two things, and I've always said this, that in some ways almost percolate into you when you tie back your own personal operating style with what you pick up. The first thing I picked up, and I suspect from the Army, was an ethos that I always talk about, an operating culture based on execution. And at Coforge, we call out execution as the ability to get things done, not talk about things, not come back with very creative reasons around why we set a goal and why the macro changed, which it invariably will, and we could not do it. And that's something that ethos of getting things done. Execution is something that is, I suspect, very affiliated with the Indian Army ethos of getting things done. The second thing, and this is the point that you made, I think the one thing that you will hear most people talk about is that some of the finest senior officers of the Indian Army are the officers who spend most of their lives in the trenches and not necessarily in headquarters. So that culture is something that at Coforge we take a lot of pride in. We wake up every day, we operate in the markets, we spend time on strategy, but we spend far more time in the market with our clients, with our employees, talking about what's happening, learning from them, and then turning things around double quick.
Great. This line, which probably everyone quotes from you, the era of AI-led experimentation is over. Now, what was a message to the industry at that time?
It was something that my colleagues and I had picked up given our interactions with our clients. We'd been talking about, the industry had been talking about, analysts had been talking about, investors had been talking about proof of concepts, experiments, pilot purgatory. What we picked up from clients was they were fairly done talking about AI strategy. They were fairly done talking about experimentation, proof of concepts and pilots. They didn't want to buy a strategy. They didn't want to buy pilots. They wanted to buy outcomes. And we were trying to translate that back to the market, back to the investors, back to our employees in terms of what was needed. Clients want today, and at that point in time had switched over to wanting to buy outcomes. The conversation had materially shifted. It had gone away from let's talk strategy, let's talk pilots, to how will you help us scale AI? How will you help us govern what we create as the AI underbelly of the organization? How will you help us secure all of that? That's what we meant.
So from AI ambition to AI impact, Mayank, if I get you in here, what are your thoughts and your experience, consulting the industry?
No, I think what I would just like to build on what Sudhir said, that most of the organizations, I think the major challenge that we have seen is that people start with AI strategy, that we want to do AI rather than looking at what problem we want to solve in the whole,
Correct.
end-to-end change, and why we are using, AI. So we start with we don't start with the problem. We start because we want to implement AI, and that's where I have seen that majority of the success or experiments to success does not leads to what the outcome the clients were expecting. One thing that comes to my mind today, which I want to ask, that when you say the experimentation rise over, and we have seen with clients that even when you go to larger conferences and all and meet different leaders, they say that now it was very nice in proof of concept stage, but when we productionize it, it's not giving us that outcome, or it's commercially not getting viable. What are your thoughts in it, like when you serve your clients, how you give that kind of, what was your strategy so that the outcome, the clients, whatever they're expecting, they get the desired outcome?
I think if one wants to productionize AI, instead of just keeping AI as a line item in the P&L, which is an innovation lab, you need to first get your data structures right. And second, you need to make sure that the cloud infrastructure or whatever infrastructure you're trying to host it on is aligned with the business outcomes that you need. It's very easy to figure out firms that are still in the initial talk stages versus firms that have actually crossed the chasm. They're on the other side. Firms that have actually made that switch over to productionizing AI, actually imbibing it instead of doing the pilots that you're talking about, you will find that they are no longer treating AI as a project. AI is embedded in the entire delivery chain itself, right? From the IP that they use, the way in which they hand over things, the way in which they integrate agents with humans, and the entire process cycle runs. It's not an isolated project. The second thing that sets apart these firms, the point that you're saying, is the fact that they are increasingly looking at tying AI-led investments to outcomes and not looking at them as discrete cost points that are to be monitored retroactively. And the third change that we see across firms, enterprises that are doing a good job of productionizing, industrializing is a strong word, but productionizing AI is, the budget is increasingly shifting from using AI for run the business only, which is an efficiency play, towards change the business, which is an innovation play.
Yeah.
Those are the three things that at least we at Coforge are seeing play out right now.
No, very well said. And I resonates with, that more focus should be on the outcome side. The another point I want to pick from, in which you very rightly said, is on the governance side.
Right.
Because that is another aspect that most of the organizations across industries who wants to implement AI, want to put kind of guardrails and governance as well. What are your thought process around that, because it's still people are figuring out, because suddenly it is moving with the pace that you are experimenting, then you are productionizing at the same time, you want to put the guardrails as well, and a lot of tech is evolving. So how do you keep that governance aspect along with that innovation, keeping the pace of innovation?
I think in order to make sure that you are maintaining the governance oversight that you're talking about, along with the pace that you need to make sure that you increasingly start using platforms. If everything is discrete, governance becomes that much more difficult. So the underlying approach, the initial approach point has to be, how do we look at the entire end-to-end value chain? How do we create, if not an integrated platform, at least platforms that are seamless when it comes to doing handovers? And then how do we build the wrappers, which are functional knowledge and the security parameters around it? That's how you obviously institutionalize it. All of it comes again in line with what I said earlier, with looking at the data architecture to begin with, and also looking at the infrastructure for compute for ML ops that you're setting up.
Yeah. So just picking on that,
Sure.
the third challenge that people talk about is getting the data right before you implement AI. So do you come across with where people go ahead and implement, or firms go ahead and implement AI, and later on realizing that, oh, my data set is not right? And well, you might be working with a lot of traditional firms as well, or where they might have missed the opportunity to get their data aspect and right. What will be your advice to the firms that really want to move ahead and want to be part of this AI wave and leverage it for their business success, but at the same time they know that they have a legacy systems in place, and a lot of data which is not having that, maintaining that quality? How those firms can create a balance in this era?
I think it has to be somewhat linear. You can't be going all in on AI. And there was a school of thought that said, even if you have unstructured data, you're an enterprise, start creating AI layers and start extracting information. It works. It works to some extent, but it also stops, because if your data is at a stage where data definitions or data redundancies are multifold, there is no amount of injection of a tool or a layer or the construction of a layer that will solve for it. So in order to be able to productionize AI, making sure that the data architecture, the data integrity, the data governance standards are adequate and are invested in, as is the infra standards around MLOps, compute, security, is a prerequisite. If a firm has not addressed data definition basics,
Yeah.
there's no point extracting the data and doing analysis.
So, can I also add another question to this about the biggest worry, the jobs, the shakeout? Many top firms have frozen hiring. What about your firm?
Well, we're hiring. We're hiring. Our central campus is not very far from where we are right now. It's in Greater Noida. Last year, the headcount of the firm went up. This is the aggregate headcount of the firm went up 8% organically. I'm not talking about inorganic growth. Of course, that 8% growth came in the context of a 29% growth in the revenue of the firm. I don't subscribe to the narrative that's going on right now, which is a very doom and gloom narrative around AI-led job deflations.
Yeah.
Yes, AI is deflationary. Yes, AI is a very powerful technology that will drive efficiencies at scale. And that's the deflation headwind. But there are multiple new demand value pools that are also getting stood up at the same time, right? The point that Mayank made earlier, setting up data pipelines for AI. The point that he made earlier, setting up cloud compute for security, for storage, for ML ops. A lot of legacy modernization, which we could never have done, especially the reverse engineering aspects before the advent of AI. Advisory services works that are coming in. I suspect the industry will change significantly in terms of the demand pools that we start addressing. I suspect there's going to be a very clear reordering of the pecking order of firms, depending on how soon and how effectively they make the pivots that are necessary. But I don't think at this point in time, the doom and gloom around folks already in the industry is justified. Yes, going forward, if as an industry we are not able to pivot ourselves to address the demand pools that are centered around driving innovation with AI, there is then going to be a dehyphenation between resource headcount growth and revenue growth. That's something we'll have to watch out for.
So, there is optimism, and AI can create a lot of opportunities also. Uh, any headwinds, like you said, but what about tailwinds?
The tailwinds are multiple, as we were talking about. The tailwinds around data, and you see a lot of those conversations going on. The tailwinds linked to cloud consumption, the tailwinds linked to advisory services opening up, the tailwinds linked to, for instance, Sonia, the biggest engagement that we're doing today as an organization, largest program is a legacy modernization program that I can tell you before the advent of AI, we could not have done, because what we're doing there is we're taking a machine language, 12 million lines of code, and we're moving it to GCP. It would have taken way too long for us to attempt something like this. So the tailwinds exist. But these are newer service lines, and some of these are tailwinds in existing service lines, which will need a new structure, which will need possibly a new operating culture, and which is over time also, I suspect, going to need a new paradigm around hiring, training, and retraining.
So it's a question for both of you. I mean, it's a very layman question. A lot of behavioral changes in terms of attitudes of people around in the world are changing. We have Middle East war, yet travel industry is not going down. So what is this happening? I mean, what exactly is going on?
You want to lead or should I lead? So travel is interesting. You're absolutely right.
And you were into, you have a lot of clients,
We have
right?
significant
Yeah,
amount of clients
airports.
in the airline space.
Yeah.
We work with actually 60 airlines across the world.
Mm.
Travel is interesting because you're absolutely right. Given what's happened in the Middle East, given the fact that the cost of airline aviation fuel has gone up, given the fact that there's been so much of disruption in operations, the airline industry revenue and volume should have been collapsing, but they're not. And the reason they're not doing it is, at least from a technology point of view, that the airline industry is fundamentally reinventing itself on a few aspects that are long-term secular tailwinds for this industry. First, the entire industry is trying to get to consumers directly. So the days of an airline trying to use an aggregator only to sell tickets, the days of PNR anyway gone, are increasingly going away, and in order to do that, they need to create a completely new technology backbone, which is driven by IATA standards called One Order, One
So
Offer.
AI is helping in that also. I mean, some way or the other. I mean,
Of course
I
it
want to
is.
ask.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because what do you need to be successful for an airline? You need a very high level of personalization. AI can and has to drive it for you. You need to have systems that will help with disruption management. We saw what happened with Southwest Airlines 3 years back.
Yeah.
You need to have systems that will step in. And increasingly in airlines, the most interesting piece that we find, Sonia, is this is 2026, but I suspect by 2028 or 2029, machines will be selling to machines. Airlines are not going to be selling to humans like us. We will have agents. Our agents will negotiate on our behalf with the agents of airlines that will be selling directly. Every time you, Mayank, I go on our respective vacations, we will find that disruptions will get handled on a proactive basis. So tech spend that underlies the travel industry, I suspect is assured and is bulletproof for at least the next 5 to 10 years.
Mayank, you want to
We
add?
take, I was building on what Sudhir said, is like in not only airline, any industry you see, what the game changing aspect will be the efficiency that AI can bring in the whole process of where, you have a lot of cumbersome process which used to take time and manpower, and which we are discussing across, with various industry leaders as well. Once you bring that efficiency, automatically your cost comes, cost goes down. Like yesterday we were talking on the insurance side as well, in terms of how we are automating the entire customer onboarding.
The entire experience is changing.
Yeah, so you're basically you are identifying the inefficiency and you are looking at where you can change the friction. And that also giving customers a greater experience. Now, what Sudhir mentioned about airline, and yesterday you saw that we were discussing that how the AI aspect is changing the way insurance firms are interacting with customers. Where you are calling or you are getting instant response, or you want to have a claims, and rather than waiting for 4 hours in anxiety, you are instantaneously getting the response, so that you are more it is cutting short the overall aspect of the value chain. So I think that is where it is game changing. It's and it's helping organization to be more efficient and ultimately reducing the overall cost and creating value, and that's what AI should be doing.
And with this AI bet, and maybe I would say beyond AI bet now, with AI safety and AI governance also coming in, and with your strong convictions about AI, is there anything with that weighs down on you? Maybe, when you sleep at night, there's something that bothers you. And
Yes.
I mean, I see a lot of activities like social activities that you've been up to. Yeah.
I sleep 7 to 8 hours a day and I don't wake up. So I
Without
sleep,
medicines.
no medicines, no nothing. I think these are exciting times. They're not
Yeah.
traumatic times. And there's a difference, right? These are times where you look at where the industry is likely to be 5 to 10 years from now and you see a wealth of possibilities. They're not traumatic, and I suspect at Coforge, our growth is testament to that, right? Over the last 3 years, since the advent of AI, the growth was always very strong, but it started accelerating even further. What one would sweat over is what one sweats over in a tech services business always. One is you always worry about your own security perimeter, data security for clients, and that continues to be something that we really watch out for, especially given some of the newer models and the vulnerabilities that they've been exposing. And the second thing, because it's a services industry at the end of the day, that one watches out for is making sure that that operating culture that we talked about around execution intensity is a culture that takes years to build and has to be nourished almost on a daily basis. That does not fray. Those are the two things I would look for.
Can you just tell us about the social initiatives that you've taken, and especially the libraries, which are definitely required at this time when everything is going digital, and the bookstores probably are closing now. Yeah.
That's right. So, like most enterprises, as part of the corporate social responsibility approach, we too had a bunch of initiatives running, and we do have them running. Some of them actually in this part of the world, around Noida itself, and they were focused on afforestation. They were focused on pond rejuvenation and the full 9 yards, which we continue to do. But about 3 years back, we stepped back, and while we were discussing AI and we were discussing technology, some of us who've been shuttling across India and the States did find that the relevance of public libraries, high quality public libraries, in a population that is growing at the speed at which we are, still existed, and in some cases was getting further accentuated. We decided 4 years back that we would build not just any run-of-the-mill library, but state-of-the-art public libraries that we hope over the next 10 years will become the templates for public libraries, free libraries, open access libraries across our country, across India. These are very atypical libraries. The book selection, and we start with 20,000 books, is curated. It's the same set of books, and I say this, and I'm an interested party, but I think we will compete with any bookstore in the country.
Wow.
And we would like to compare with them in terms of what we have out there free of cost. It's a library that never closes on any day of the year, irrespective of a weekend or a holiday. 365 days a year, you can come to any of the 4 Coforge public libraries. We're adding 2 more in the next 4 months, from 9 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the night.
Also, what is the response? I mean, are people genuinely interested now to actually hold a book and read? And I mean, because Gen Z, I say, they are not much into book reading. They're more into audiobooks and all that.
But
Yeah.
before you answer, I must say that this is an excellent initiative.
Absolutely.
Being in this industry in IT, and where we see a lot of digitization, and spending most of your time on gadgets, and then you have phones which is distracting you, or there's notifications, Instagrams, when books are something that increases your concentration, you spend time, it is with you, and those, so that is also very much needed to have those, you go into your self zone, you reflect on yourself, and it increases your concentration, which makes humans more efficient. So I think what Sudhir is doing, and what Coforge's initiative is really, it has a very long term impact on humans. So it's more than, from where I see, Sudhir, it's more than having a library. The wider impact is much more, which is intangible, which only those who will go to it and spend time will realize later on.
And I
Because
just
we are
hope,
not realizing what gadgets are doing to our mind.
and I just hope AI doesn't get in there, because AI books are not good. So,
It's interesting, and thank you for that, Mayank. We don't allow a phone or a computer. We've got caddies that we built across each of these libraries. They are 100% digitized. Everyone who works in the library is our employee.
okay.
We don't outsource any aspect of it. But yes, it's a place where we ask people, as Mayank said, to decouple themselves from technology, which is fantastic and powerful, but tends to give you information in smaller snippets.
Yeah.
And to your earlier question, the response has been incredible. I mean, it has been heartfelt. Let me put it this way: we have parents, we have actually more parents than kids, writing in saying that they were looking for something like this. And I would really encourage through your platform, Sonia, people to visit the Coforge Public Library if they're in Delhi, if they're in Noida, if they're in Gurgaon, or if they're in Hyderabad, which is one of the ones we've set up. You will see at least 2, if not 3 more come up around Delhi NCR over the next 4 months.
This is so encouraging because children don't actually do what they are told to do, but they do what they see their parents doing. So if the parents are going, it's an excellent thing. Now, going ahead, Sudhir, before talking about the road ahead, which will be our last question, any insights for a leader who is still deciding in your industry, who has not made his AI move yet, but is planning to?
Not insight or advice, but I can just share our experience. We think in the technology space, if anyone's going to make true impact, they need to understand the industry that they are a part of. 9 years back, the pivot that really helped us the most was that as a $400 million organization, the first question you had, Sonia, the first realization we had was we were doing too many things. There was no point for a $400 million firm to be trying to do the same number of things that an Accenture was. So we just curtailed and hyper specialized, not even in industries, in sub-segments. If someone's starting off, as you said, I would urge them, I would say the same thing to my daughter if she starts a firm. Apply technology, but first be very deep in a small industry subsegment. 9 years back, we walked away from all industries except specialty insurance within insurance, except airlines and airports across travel and hospitality, and except for asset and wealth management and banking. So hyper specialize in the industry. Make sure you're using a platformized IP-led approach when it comes to delivery organizations, and try to make sure that the best and the brightest that you have spend as much time as they can with clients.
Any one thing that AI misunderstands today in terms of organizations, not really understanding what AI can do to them?
I think what AI cannot do to the organization, when I look at, I will look this question in a different way. I think people are more getting into that, okay, let's bring automation, and let's use AI everywhere. What it cannot do is what Sudhir said, spending time with your customers, knowing the problem, that empathy version of it. That's where, so humans are required. And it's more like you can use it as a tool. I think another mistake, or what you were kept picking up on what you initially said about everyone discussing, oh, there'll be a job loss and all that aspects. It has always been the case, when our we were discussing about robotic process automation. At that time, there was a loom that, okay, all the BPO industry is going to suffer. So the it's a tool that is in there in the kitty, which is going to make you more efficient, more responsible, I will say. But at the end, you would like to sit with your customers, right? You would like to know their pain points and what they are trying to solve, consult them. Similarly, those who are working on AI projects, they need to be more analytical, judgmental, uh, looking at that whether it's actually solving it, or the agents I am building, how I am putting those governance, those guardrails, so that it ultimately delivering the outcome and delivering value to the customer. And that's what AI on its own cannot achieve. So you need that judgment, you need that human to be more responsive. And humans can, I feel that from a people perspective, we can do what we are supposed to do. So if I am running a firm, then I should be running a firm. I should not be looking into collecting data, or analyzing various papers and all that work AI can do for me. If I am a creator, then I should be thinking, doing, I should be making, if I'm a filmmaker, I should be concentrating on how I'm going to make film, not looking at how my reels are coming, know how I'm collating that. So that is one of the most fascinating things I see, that I can concentrate on my job. If I am a CEO and I'm looking at that, okay, how I should allocate my capital with a minimal resource in there, I will not spend most of my time. So in the current, without AI, if you look at, most of the time we will be spending in collating data, various permutation combination, going into the meetings, and actual judgment will be hardly, say it may takes 2 months, 3 months of time to come to a conclusion. Now, with the help of AI, you can do all these, administrative and analysis work and get the recommendation so that you can take the judgment on top of it. So it is making human more efficient. That's how I see that it's only going to add. I don't see that what it cannot do. I think that the way I will put it as like it is going to make us more efficient.
So humans will get more efficient and the companies will have AI budgets which will get more elastic about it. So this is the last question. So 5 years out, how do you perceive India's IT industry, or what gives you most hope?
I think I feel very optimistic about the industry, and I'm not reacting to the immediate assertions that one hears from foundation model players who say they're going to come in and start giving you solutions on the tap, or the data platforms that say that they can do it. Of course, they can do it, and of course, they will keep coming in. But I think 5 years down the line, the industry is going to be much, much bigger because the total addressable market, as a consequence of AI injection, would have gone up. Second, I think not artificial, but the existing boundaries across service providers, which are broken by process providers, product creators, SaaS players, services players, will start fraying. In the world that is emerging, where you have intelligence nearly on tap coming in from the foundational models and whatever evolves out of it, where you have tools which are AI enabled, the world will need solution creators for creating customized solutions for enterprises that exist. An LLM, the same LLM cannot be used by every player in an industry. So I think our industry, I believe the industry should be larger. Of course, there's going to be a very significant reordering of the players that exist in the industry as it stands today. And finally, I mean, just to conclude, I also feel, if there's a side call, I feel very, very good about the generation of engineers that is coming out now. I always say this, 95% of the AI practice at Coforge, which in some ways is the nerve center of the organization, which creates all our platforms, Coforge, One AI, 95% of them have less than 5 years of experience. This generation of engineers coming out, unlike my generation, does not come out with certificate and says, I am certified to do this. They are coming out of colleges where they've gone through hackathons for the 4 years they've been there. They have a very strong solution mindset. They are willing to flex with technology, and they just keep their eyes on the solution creation, which is what the new generation, the new times will demand.
It is so good to hear. Yeah.
And I resonate with what Sudhir you are saying, and we are uh, uh, finding the similar aspect of working with the newer generation. But one thing, just I'm curious to understand: can you, having a larger workforce of 45,000, do you see when you have a bunch of experienced individuals, you have who have seen how the era has evolved from the traditional mainframe to cloud and all this
Sure.
transformation, and on one side you have the 5 years, 4 years bright great kids who are coming out of college, going through very various hackathon and all. Do you see that, how do you see this balance coming out? Do you see that it's complete reskill required for those who have very much experience to be in that era? Or do you see that there is a point where both of these kind of workforce can learn from each other, and together can complement to deliver more value driven outcome for the customers?
I think increasingly it's not the number of years of experience, it's the willingness to learn and the willingness to flex with the changes that will keep happening at a higher velocity. That's becoming more important. Uh, if you look, Mayank, at the average forward deployed engineer in the US, his or her age is on an average 26 or 27, right? There are some exceptional forward deployed engineers who are also 50, 55. The age variable, I suspect, is increasingly getting eroded. The only variable that exists is, does the individual, irrespective of the age, irrespective of the experience, have that learnability coefficient which is required? Training, of course, these days is literally on tap. So the old days of not having access to training are gone. If you're willing to learn, if you're willing to put in that elbow grease, age increasingly and experience is becoming second.
So in a way, are you advising that promoting a culture of learning is the way forward? Or
It is, and culture of learning, and it's a culture of personal accountability. I think the days of getting people in a big room, getting external trainers, training them over 3 months are slowly ebbing away. Some of that will continue. But all you need to do is give somebody a cloud license and give them enough tokens, and they should be able to sit and create their own training program, defining where they are right now, what they want to be. And training, for the most part, is either free these days. At least some of the best tools are free, and some of the very good tools also, the cost for training has really come down drastically. So it's a culture of training, a learning, as you said, equally important, a culture of personal accountability and wanting to learn.
Yeah, so just building on that, and I'm very curious on this one. But what also happened every demon when you go into and you get sometimes so obsessed with the technology, but ultimately you are delivering for a client, and there comes other aspect of it. Those team collaboration or learning the aspect of what we are delivering, the outcome, why I am doing this. So how do you see then this getting impacted when someone is getting into cloud and technology is solving all the problems for which earlier we used to sit in a room, brainstorm,
Sure.
take a marker, design
Right.
that.
Right.
So when all these things are eroding, then how me and you, that personal aspect of jointly working on a project, how do you see that what methods an organization can adapt to keep that intact? Or do you see that also eroding, or you see that there is a value that people collaborate? Obviously there is a value, but
Correct.
how we ensure that aspect remains while we are using AI to deliver?
Yeah, so they're not mutually exclusive, right? Working closely, collaboratively is not mutually exclusive from imbibing and leveraging technology at scale. The way we see it is, especially with the advent of AI, while we continue to need highly specialized AI engineers and forward deployed engineers, pure play tech skills are increasingly getting relatively deprioritized. You need people who understand the domain, and within the domain, the client's business extremely well. You need people, and if you were to, let's say, hire a programmer, you would need her to be working leveraging a platform across what we at Coforge call mod squads, right? Human agent hybrid pods on an ongoing basis. You need people, as you rightly said, who are configured in a pattern which is optimized not for headcount, but is optimized for outcomes, right? So those are the changes we're looking at. You need to have human agent pods. Obviously, they have to work very closely. The humans have to work very closely, and the agents have to be harnessed. You need to structure the whole team to be focused on outcomes. One has to lose that lens of what is the experience and look at what is a person bringing in. And fourth, very important, industry context, client business context is becoming exceptionally important.
So in a way, you're saying that understanding the business of the client that you're serving is going to be the key.
It is going to be one of the primary keys. At the end of the day, tech intelligence will come from the foundational players. But how do you apply it? How do you create a solution? Even within, it's not just industry expertise that is required, because you don't want to create a solution that everyone across the industry, you will need to have the client context
Yeah,
as
and
well.
very rightly when you said that you need a specific LLM until and unless you don't know what business you are serving. And for example, you also mentioned about the specialty insurance. So in that segment, there are various glossaries or terminologies that is specifically being used in that industry. So until unless you don't design your LLM in context of that particular industry, it's not going to, you can't use the generic aspect. So for that, knowing the business is very key. And one last question, Sudhir, from my end. We are talking a lot on AI aspect, and we are running an industry, or in the industry which is heavily people driven. If you look at the other industry like steel or motors, this is the only industry that is human capital is the key.
Correct.
What role you think the HR function will be playing in this new era of where AI is going to dominate?
So HR, I think there are elements of the traditional HR function that will become more important, and there are other elements that will stepping away, right? HR as a vehicle for addressing common questions around policies or interventions which are more clarificatory will step back, because you can increasingly create agents which can do all of that. Where HR becomes really important is in terms of thinking of the new career architecture that is going to be needed. where they start thinking about what are the new roles that are going to be needed. For instance, when we look at ourselves, our aggregate operations organization used to have 13 layers. We've already told the market, we're already working and our HR function is driving it, collapsing all 13 into 4. Right? So those are some of the changes that HR will be driving. We are now looking at newer roles that are coming, agentic engineers. You're looking at evaluation engineers. HR will have to not just define the roles, figure out how to do the training, how to do the cross training, how to do the cross leverage, how to do the hiring to fit all of that.
So a lot of metrics are changing now, and all I could understand was that even the companies need to reinvent themselves, and if they want to stay in the game, and there are no excuses anymore because
there are no excuses, and these are very exciting times. I mean, a lot of things that we could never have done are now possible. There are new demand pools coming in, just as there is a deflationary wind around efficiency. And the sky is the limit if one gets it right.
Thank you so much to both of you. It was such an interesting conversation.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
So here's what I'm taking away today. Reinvention is not a slogan. It is a decision you make before you are forced to. And the leaders who will define this industry over the next decade are the ones making that decision right now, not waiting for the shakeout to tell them they had to. Sudhir, thank you so much. And Mayank, thank you so much. This has been TOI AIQ Talks with our knowledge partner, ADROSONIC. Before we go, the TOI AI Quotient Awards are coming this September and nominations are now open. If your organization is genuinely building with AI, if you are moving from experimentation into production, from pilot into scale, we want to recognize you. Head to the AIQ Awards microsite now and nominate today. India's most important AI recognition platform is looking for the work you have been doing. Don't let it go unseen. We will see you in the next episode. Thank you.